The vast sky isn't eternal. It just seems far too high to be brought down. There was a time when the very heavens trembled at the sound of unseen, invisible footsteps crossing the marble of Olympus. The master of thunder, lord of storms, the one whose name was whispered before battles and shouted during shipwrecks, lived surrounded by a threat his lightning could not reach. Zeus ruled the world, but he didn't rule the future. He knew how stories begin. A child is born, a father trusts. Power matures in silence. Then, on a moonless night, the throne changes hands. That's how it was with his own father. That's how it was with the Titans. The cycle didn't need approval. It just needed time. There was a prophecy hanging over him like a leaf suspended by an invisible thread. A descendant would surpass him. It wasn't a matter of strength. It was destiny. And destiny can't be fought with clenched fists. It slips between the lines of decisions. Every new birth was a suspicion wrapped in divine flesh. Every admiring glance could be hiding a calculation. The king of the gods began to see rivals in his own children, betrayal in his own alliances, downfall in his own conquests. And so, while mortals feared storms, the Lord of the skies feared something deeper, repeating his own story. Because when a god learns that power can be taken away, the whole sky learns how to crack. This isn't the glorified version told in the temples. There are no triumphant hymns here, no golden images hanging among the clouds. Here, there's a tension building beneath the surface, a heavy silence between stone columns, and a king who hasn't relaxed his shoulders since the day he took the throne. High atop Olympus, where the wind cuts like a cold blade and the clouds swirl like sentinels, Zeus seemed unbreakable. His judgments were sentences, his voice law. But beneath all that grandeur, there was a constant calculation. Who could overthrow him? When? How? The power he gained by defeating Cronus didn't bring him peace. It brought him awareness. He knew that every empire is born with invisible cracks. And he also knew that his own father believed himself invincible before the fall. If you like stories where the gods aren't just static symbols, but creatures shaped by fear, desire, and distrust, subscribe now. Leave a like to strengthen this dark journey, and let me know in the comments which country and city you're watching from. I want to map out just how far the echo of Olympus is reaching. Get ready. What you're about to hear isn't just a story about a powerful god. It's a portrait of what happens when the throne becomes a prison and the sky turns into a ceiling about to collapse. Before he ruled, Zeus was a threat. His father, Cronus, devoured his own children like someone eliminating dangerous variables. There was no hesitation, just a cold calculation. Stop the prophecy before it could even breathe. But a small flaw changed the course of the cosmos. A newborn was hidden away. A stone wrapped in cloth took his place. The trick was simple, but the effect was colossal. The son, who should have vanished, grew up on the margins of power, nourished by stories of siblings imprisoned in their father's stomach. Young Zeus learned early on that power isn't inherited, it's seized. Every story about his father's tyranny was fuel piling up. He didn't just grow stronger physically, he grew with a clear purpose. Freeing his siblings wasn't an act of compassion, it was a strategic move. When he finally faced Cronus, he didn't do it as a son seeking reconciliation, but as a walking sentence. He forced him to give back what he had swallowed. Every deity he made Cronus regurgitate was a potential ally. The war that followed was neither short nor clean. Sky and earth were torn apart in a conflict that echoed through the ages. Titans against emerging gods. The old order against youthful ambition. Zeus didn't win by brute force alone. He triumphed through unlikely alliances and precise calculation. He unleashed forces imprisoned deep beneath the world, ancient creatures who hated Cronus enough to fight alongside him. He turned collective resentment into military strategy. When Cronus fell, there was no heavenly applause. There was silence. The kind of silence that comes before the universe is rearranged. Zeus took the throne amid the ruins of a finished era. But while others celebrated freedom, he watched the shadows. He knew that every revolution carries the seed of repetition. The actions he took against his father might very well one day be turned back against him. At that moment, the sky had already become a stage of constant vigilance. Zeus defeated the past, but he ushered in an eternal tension that would never leave him. Olympus was rebuilt on the promise of stability, but stability isn't born from violence. It only follows it for a while. Zeus divided power among his brothers, established hierarchies, and organized divine roles. However, dividing things up didn't eliminate the risk, it just spread it around. Every ally was also a potential rival. Every gesture of loyalty could be hidden ambition. By his side was Hera, the rightful queen, sharp-minded and with a long memory. Their marriage wasn't a passionate romance, it was a political arrangement. But Zeus never managed to stay within the limits he set for himself. His countless affairs weren't just impulses, they were unconscious attempts to expand his influence, produce powerful offspring, and spread his mark across the world. However, every new child reignited the echo of the prophecy. He began to watch his own descendants, like a general inspecting future rivals. Excessive strength aroused suspicion. Sharp intelligence set off alarms. What should have been continuity turned into a statistical threat. For Zeus, fatherhood was never just about affection, it was a minefield. Storms became more frequent, not because the world demanded it, but because he needed to reaffirm his supremacy. Lightning streaked across the sky like a repeated signature. I'm still in charge. I'm still deciding. I'm still here. The problem is that constant displays of power reveal an inner fragility. Someone who feels secure doesn't need to prove their dominance at every moment. The throne was solid, but the sovereign's mind was becoming unstable. Paranoia began to shape decisions, and decisions shaped destinies. There came a moment when a new prophecy reached Zeus's ears. A son born from a certain union would surpass his father in wisdom and strength. The reaction was immediate. There was no consultation, no reflection, only absorption. He swallowed the pregnant goddess to prevent the birth. A brutal strategy, almost mathematical, but the future doesn't dissolve in the stomach of a god. Time works with different tools. Months later, an unbearable pain pierced the sovereign's skull. The blow that split his head open didn't bring death, it brought birth. From within him emerged Athena, armed, lucid, complete. The episode was an unmistakable warning. Not even preventative self-sacrifice guarantees absolute control. Zeus realized that fate doesn't attack head-on, it infiltrates. From then on, every decision began to carry twice the weight. It wasn't enough to act, it was necessary to anticipate invisible consequences. He began to avoid certain alliances, to distance potential threats before they could mature. He turned prevention into obsession. However, the more he tried to bend the course of events, the more obvious it became that the universe did not respond solely to his will. The king of the sky understood something unsettling. Defeating external enemies is a tangible task. Defeating the inevitable is another story. The tension didn't come only from his descendants. At one point, even the gods of Olympus conspired against him. The idea of chaining Zeus while he slept spread like wildfire. It wasn't an open rebellion, it was accumulated wear and tear. Ruling through fear creates silence, but it also breeds hidden alliances. When he uncovered the plot, his reaction wasn't surprise. It was confirmation of old suspicions. He was already expecting betrayal. The difference now was that the faces were familiar. From that moment on, trust became a scarce resource. Zeus tightened surveillance, intervened more in the lives of mortals, as if controlling human narratives could make up for divine instability. Each intervention was both a show of force and an attempt at symbolic reaffirmation. Olympus turned into a place of contained tension. The formal smiles hid calculations. The banquets concealed silent assessments of power. The king kept a proud posture, but inside he was calculating the odds. The crown was heavy, not because of the gold, but because of the constant expectation of a rupture. Zeus was never overthrown, but he lived as if a fall was always just one step away. That permanent state shaped his leadership, his alliances, his excesses, and his punishments. The cycle that began with Cronus never left his mind. He understood better than anyone that all absolute power has an invisible expiration date. Even if it never happens, the possibility changes behaviors. His children grew up, each with their own abilities, each with a different potential. Some were loyal, others too independent for their father's comfort. The sky remained firm. The storm stayed obedient, but stability didn't silence the internal noise. Fear became a constant companion, silent, almost intimate. And so Zeus reigned, not as a calm deity, but as a ruler who understood all too soon that the sky, no matter how vast it seems, could one day come crashing down on whoever governs it. The sky didn't fall, the throne remained occupied, but Zeus's true battle was never fought against titans or conspirators. It was fought against the inevitable repetition of history. Absolute power didn't bring serenity, it brought eternal vigilance. He ruled the world, but he was never freed from his own prophecy, because on Olympus, just like among mortals, a king's greatest enemy isn't the army approaching, but the future quietly taking shape.